Asheron's Call. One of the things that made this classic game so special was organically discovering the rich lore and world building created by the developers. Being that I only played the game since the launch of the Soulclaim server in 2000 till 2004, I missed out on a lot of the exciting content that came to Dareth over the next 13 years, until Warner Brothers closed the portals to Dareth forever. Welcome to the Abyss. It is I, Void Money, and today we're exploring and rediscovering the lore of Asheron's portals, jumping into Dareth once more to experience its magical world. This time, we'll discover the mysterious creatures known as the Thrungus. After finishing, or skipping, the Academy quests, new Asparians arriving on Dareth will potentially find themselves in Sanamar. This is the fourth starting town introduced during the Throne of Destiny expansion. Speaking to Sanamar's portal guardian, young Asparians will receive a piece of parchment titled Thrungus hovel locations. Reading it, we quickly learn of a new nuisance to Dareth and the Viamontian people. Greetings, citizen. The portal guardians have entrusted you with the most significant task. You must infiltrate the Thrungus lairs and retrieve the king's belongings. You can find their hovels in the following locations, but stay near the roads. There are dangerous creatures within these forests. Signed by Sir Binwis Locke, the document also states the location of 4 Thrungus hovels. Like any stalwart explorer contracted by emissaries of the king, we make our next stop in our journey to the town of Sanamar to goof off for a bit and maybe check out some portals while we're at it. Interestingly enough, if we go to the town portal network in the marketplace, which why wouldn't we find a painting of a mushroom-like creature. Examining the painting reveals an inscription below. The Thrungus are another one of those creatures who appeared on this world, and little has been discovered about them. They do tend to hide out in dark caves and can be more ferocious than they appear. Well, I don't know how ferocious our little myconid friends could possibly be, but after drinking enough flagons of ale, I think we're ready to check out the first of the Thrungus hovels, the Steaming Hovel. After running roughly west along the road, we eventually make our way to a portal in a sunken cave entrance at the coordinate of 73.1N, 65.6W. Inside is the Steaming Hovel, which doesn't actually have a whole lot of steam of it, but it does contain a lot of Thrungus. Hopefully, without dying, we will eventually discover a couple of chests with stolen trinkets, in this case a stolen necklace and platter, and a book titled The Throngus Part 1. Leaving the dungeon, we can similarly go to the 3 remaining coordinates on the parchment that we received from the Portal Guardian to find 3 similarly obscured portals to the moist, sultry, and humid hovels. Within the treasures, found among a few score of Thrungus, are more chests containing stolen goods, an amulet, a ring, a brew kettle, an ewer, a bracelet, and a frying pan, and, of course, 3 more tomes cataloging the Throngus. Once we drop the stolen goods off with the Portal Guardian, we find ourselves rewarded with a good bit of Viamontian Guardian bracelets, a crappy amount of Pyreals, and 96k experience. Also, extra bracelets can be traded back for another stack of Pyreals. Not bad. But hey, what of the Tomes of Knowledge, I hear you asking? Well, friends, gather round at the tavern once more and throw back another flagon of ale and settle in for story time. This new world holds many strange mysteries. Creatures, the like of which I could scarcely imagine on Ispar, are commonplace in the forest and tundras of this curious realm. Most of these creatures are terrifying beyond comprehension, even to a warrior such as me. But the Thrungus, as my men have taken to calling them, are simply comical. We first learned of these beasts when King Varici's prized drudge belt went missing from his private quarters. The king had bested a drudge with a penchant for ear-biting in order to win that belt. It was his favorite trophy. Visitors to a royal dinner knew to set aside at least an hour more than the meal's scheduled duration in order to make time for the king's tale of pugilistic prowess. The Grand Knight and I turned his penchant for storytelling into a small game. No matter how many times the king told his story, the Grand Knight and I would question him for ever-increasing and ever more trivial levels of detail, in a bid to lengthen the story as long as possible. It amused us to watch the king's guests squirm in their seats and pinch their bladders. I am proud to say that we helped stretch the king's tale to a goodly 3 hours on one occasion. So when the king's belt went missing, we all heard of it. The king called both myself and the Grand Knight into his quarters. King Varici's face was purple with rage. His furniture and personal belongings were strewn all about the room, evidence of his frantic search for the belt. While he relayed the tale of the belt's disappearance, his body shook like a young boy at his first battle. He repeatedly clenched and unclenched his fists, his knuckles audibly cracking in an extremely unnerving manner. He demanded that we find the thief immediately and throw him into the foulest of dungeons. While the Grand Knight and I suddenly snickered to ourselves over the king's rage at the loss of such a foolish trinket, we were also quite aware of the true gravity of the situation. A thief had somehow snuck past all of the king's guards and into the king's very bedroom. Some enemy of the people had found a way into our most heavily guarded location. The theft of the king's most prized possession was no mere theft. It was a message. This thief wanted us to know that he could get to the king anytime he pleased, and there was nothing we could do to stop him. We spent weeks questioning our suspects. In this case, our suspects included every citizen of Sanamar. We found many who had cause to steal from the king, and those people were thrown into the torture pits, but none who possessed the ability to sneak past the royal guard and into the king's chamber. This fact troubled me greatly. I have always been able to identify the perpetrator of a crime swiftly and decisively, and on those occasions when I could not, I have at least been able to find a scapegoat believable enough to prosecute. But nothing was more troubling than this. The thefts continued, even while we questioned the whole of Sanamar, even while we proclaimed to all under our rule that we would deal with the thief in the most decisive and brutal manner possible. That same thief continued to defy our king by stealing even more of his personal treasures. Interesting. So, Sir Binwys Locke, the dude who wrote the parchment leading to the hovels, got all the way and just threw some journals on the ground without retrieving the rest of the stolen goods? What gives? In any case, on to the next book. I had never seen the king so enraged. While he is always a generally unpleasant man, even on the best of days, he now seemed a raging tyrant. Servants cowered in the halls when he passed. The royal guard, including the brave Farrens, took a step back when he neared. He even took to personally torturing prisoners in the pits. The king was convinced that the thief was some rebel spy, some citizen who had long been with us, perhaps even a member of our own guard, those whose true allegiance was to the Stag of Beleness. But as the thefts continued, I grew less sure of this supposition, for I began to notice a pattern to the thefts. Every last trinket that went missing, from the belt to the king's personal dining ware, had one thing in common. It was shiny. The thief was no enemy of the state. The thief had no designs on the king's life. This thief was nothing more than a mindless collector of sparkling baubles. I immediately suspected the drudges who inhabit the surrounding forests, but soon discounted them as unlikely suspects. They lacked the subtlety and skill of this thief. No, this was something different, something I had not yet encountered. I kept my conclusions to myself. It does the public good to see the true face of their king from time to time. When they know to what lengths the king will go to pursue a simple jewel thief, the people are less apt to engage in more damaging offenses. Instead, I conducted my own experiment. I assembled a small collection of unique, shiny trinkets and placed them in hidden niches all about the royal hall. I spoke to no one of this. I merely let the items lie, hidden from view. I checked on the items several times throughout the day. For a time, 3 days actually, nothing happened. They remained undisturbed in their hidden locations, but on the 4th day, the first of the items went missing. On the 5th, another item. On the 6th, 2 more. By the 8th day, all 7 items had been stolen, and all in the small hours of the night. These items meant nothing to the king, and they were no more value than a simple brew kettle, but they were pleasing to look upon, enough to catch the fancy of a simple-minded fool. My assumption has been correct. I was dealing with some dumb animal, small and quiet, adept at hiding in the shadows. Nothing really to fear, but an irritant to deal with nonetheless. But still, I told no one of this. To be truthful, I desired to find that belt and present it to the king myself. Certainly, the one to do so would receive quite a worthy reward in exchange. So I assembled another collection of glittering trinkets, hid them in a small niche near the royal kitchens, and set my trap. And so the plot thickens. On to Book 3. It was not long before the thief revealed himself. At first, I thought I had passed from waking into dreaming. I was standing there in the darkened alcove, eyes trained on the niche wherein I had placed the trinkets. I was alone in the silent halls. I could neither see nor hear any other man. I waited for hours. Over time, I began to fear that my trap had been laid for naught. Perhaps I had been spotted. Perhaps the thief had finished his assault on the royal hall just as I had formulated my plan of capture. Or perhaps the lazy fiend had simply decided to take the night off. I despaired that the night would pass without incident until I noticed a shape in the gloom of the darkened hallways. It silhouetted, gradually separated from the darkness around it, as if it had been there all along, and my eyes were only now able to pick it out from its shadowy surroundings. Had it been here all along? Had I truly not seen this thing until now? I was shocked that I could miss such a thing. But more startling than that was the nature of the shape. It was a large mushroom, seemingly planted in the stone floor of the royal hall. A mushroom half as tall as a man. Several questions crossed my mind, the first of which being, how does a mushroom grow from stone? But before I had much time to ponder these questions, I witnessed a most miraculous sight, and this sight is what caused me to question my sanity that night. The mushroom moved. It bent its head toward the ground and swiveled about, as if surveying its surroundings. Then, seemingly satisfied that it was not being watched, it took a step forward. I had thought that I was looking at a large mushroom cat sitting atop a lone stalk, but as it began to walk, I noticed that what I had thought to be a lone stalk was in fact a pair of legs that had simply been held close together. The creature creeped toward the niche and rounded up the sparkling items. It looked around once more to make sure it was not being watched. This time, I caught a faint glimpse of two small dark eyes on the cap of the giant fungus. Then, it did something wholly unexpected. It sprang forward, darting out of the hallway with remarkable speed. I leapt out of my alcove and chased the beast, not caring how much racket I made as my steel boots pounded against the stone floor. The beast knew that I was onto him. He dashed forward with more speed than I had yet seen exhibited by any creature of this new world. I barely kept him in sight as he rounded corner after corner in a most successful attempt at evasion. I dared not shout at the beast, not wishing to make myself more of a spectacle than I already had. But it was no use. The royal guard came coming from all directions at the sound of my raucous pursuit. They called to me to halt until they recognized my face. Then calls of "Sir Locke chases the thief" rang throughout the royal hall. I tracked the creature into the hallway where the guest quarters were located. The door to one of the rooms slammed shut just as I rounded the corner. I ran to the door and smashed it to pieces with a powerful kick. But I was too late. The outer window had been shattered. The thief had fled. I ducked my head out into the chill night air and looked for any trace of the mushroom figure on the streets below. There were none. Well, it sounds like Sir Benwys Locke had found himself in a bit of a comedy of errors. On to part 4. The following days were miserable. At first, I declined to provide any details as to the thief's appearance. I merely told those who asked that the thief was cloaked in shadow, and that I had not the time to make a proper identification. But none believed me. Not that I have a liar's reputation. No, quite the contrary. The reason they did not believe me is because my reputation is that of a man who always nets his quarry. I have lost neither duel nor battle in all my years as a knight of Viamont. When I set out to catch a man, I do not stop until that man is either locked up in the deepest pits of the king's dungeon, or safely pinned beneath the tip of my lance. So it was quite inconceivable that I should fail to catch even a glimpse of this thief. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of trusting General Korchima with the true story of that night. He and I have seen many strange things in our time together in this world. I thought that surely he would believe me. However, such was not the case. It was only a matter of hours before I grew wise to the whispers and snickers of the guards and townspeople as I walked past. They were laughing at me. The damn fools were laughing at me. Of course, that all stopped when I decapitated Sir Fusilia by the fountain. Even so, I could feel them staring at me. They believed I was a fool, and that I could not abide. So I mounted an expedition into the Thrungus hovels. It took me a few nights of searching before I found them, but eventually I uncovered the abandoned ruins wherein the Thrungum make their home. The townspeople no longer laugh at me. Instead, they laugh at the Thrungum. These silly little beasts are too comical to take seriously. However, their laughable demeanor masks quite the brutal fighter. I have lost more than a couple of good men to these dangerous little beasts. but nowhere near as many as I have lost to the more dangerous Roost, or eaters, of course. Anyhow, the Thrungus hovels have become a fairly popular hunting den. Viamontians new to this world are taken there to learn martial skills which they might not have acquired on Ispar. And of course, anyone whose possessions mysteriously disappear at night know exactly where to go should they wish to retrieve their sparkly objects. As for the king's belt, I located the thief who had taken it and relieved him of his glittering burden. The king rewarded me quite handsomely for my efforts, and the thief's mushroom cap now graces the wall above my hearth. Sir Binwis Locke. And with that, I guess the explanation of why he tossed his journals into the hovels is sort of explained. It seems he realized the king only truly cared about the missing drudge belt, and so we lonely newcomers to Dareth are stuck picking up the remaining baubles. Now, stepping behind the fourth wall for a moment, parting through the veil, I have to mention how cool the addition of the Thrungus was to the game. These guys were actually part of a contest Turbine ran to coincide with the release of the Throne of Destiny expansion. The Make a Monster contest saw Chip Alley of Harvest Games' myconid design find its way into the game in the form of the Thrungus. Very cool. But with that, my friends, the mysterious Thrungus seem at least somewhat less mysterious, and the next secret of Dareth awaits discovery in our next video. If you followed along and find yourself wanting to play Asheron's Call, visit my video explaining how you can play Asheron's Call today. And while you're at it, feel free to drop a hello, and maybe I'll be seeing you soon around Sanamar on the Cold Eve server. Till next time, farewell my friends.